Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, we head to the annual AUSA conference in Washington, D.C. to bring you conversations with top Army leaders and innovators in the defense space. First up, we sit down with Major General Frank Lozano to discuss the future of the Army's missile capabilities. Plus, the new Army TACOM commander shares her insights on the force's supply chain after visiting production lines. And learn how one company went from movie making to defense contracting. Coming to you from the heart of the nation's capital, it's the latest in news and analysis, from the Pentagon to the platoon, here on Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. What's on the horizon for the Army's missile contracts? Is the mid-range capability missile getting a redesign? We sat down with Major General Frank Lozano at AUSA 2025 to get some updates.
I'm Jen Judson, land warfare reporter with Defense News, and I'm here with Major General Frank Lozano,
Good morning.
PEO Missiles and Space. General, thank you so much for joining us here at the Defense News booth at AUSA. You have an enormous portfolio. There's so much we could talk about. But talk about, I think a big interest for our readers is where you are in scaling up your production for so many different types of missiles. You know, you've got PrSM, you've got PAC-3, you've got GMLRS, you name it, you're trying to ramp them up. So highlight some of the areas where you are ramping up, and maybe talk a little bit about some of the risk and bottlenecks that you might be experiencing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jen, for hosting me this morning. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. We're doing a lot of work to try to increase production capacity, as well as reduce production lead times for PAC-3 MSE, PrSM, as well as guided MLRS. Both from an air and missile defense perspective and long-range precision fires perspective, those are key capabilities for us. So the first thing that we want to do with Lockheed, who manages all three of those items for us, is first exhibit the demand. We just awarded a $9.8 billion contract for production of PAC-3 MSE. We just reached a handshake agreement on EOC-5 for PrSM, which we're going to produce 400 missiles. For PrSM, we just took delivery of 26 last year. We're taking delivery of 54. We're going to take delivery of 100 next year and then jump up to 400. So continuing to exhibit that demand, put pressure on the defense industrial base to mobilize and to create more capacity so that they can deliver and we can fulfill our inventory requirements to make sure that we have a good global strategic presence from a fires capability perspective. We also have Lockheed Martin under contract. They're building 12,400 guided MLRS for us right now, and they're already on contract to build 14,000 the year after that. So being very aggressive about funding missile procurements in increased quantities to try to stimulate the industrial base to produce at greater rates.
Have you shifted the benchmark for some of these? You know, there was a lot of goals that were set in the previous administration, but now there seems to be a lot more talk about ramping up further. So for something like PAC-3 MSE, what are you eyeballing, or what goals are you now setting now that you've had a better chance to look and measure where you are with, you know, stockpiles and replenishment, et cetera, and what you will need potentially for, you know, the next fight, whatever it may be. Have you moved the goals or the benchmark for some of those munition productions?
Yes, we definitely have. From a PAC-3 MSE perspective, although we haven't settled on a final number, we're definitely looking at something from an annual production perspective that's north of 1,000 missiles a year. In the most recent contract that we awarded, the multi-year for 24-26, we have Lockheed Martin under contract to build 870 1 year, moving to 1,100 the next year, and then 1,350 the year after that. So we've, from a production perspective, leveraging both U.S. investments and foreign military sales investments, we've loaded them to build north of 1,000, and that may likely increase to above 1,500 as well. But we've got to gauge the demand and get them there in a really smart, deliberate manner so we can sustain that production in the out years.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the mid-range capability missile Typhon that has had a lot of attention when it deployed to the Philippines. It also had a test shot in Australia. Now it is in Japan. Talk about what you're learning from the system and what are some of the takeaways from these deployments?
Yeah, so medium range capability has been a tremendous success, not only from an acquisition and fielding perspective, but also from a global strategic perspective, just as you mentioned, getting it into the Indo-PACOM AOR and influencing our adversaries to take notice of what we can bring to bear from a capabilities perspective. You know, one of the best things that we can do as an acquisition community is provide our Army senior leaders with options. And that's what we did with MRC. We got it into the field very quickly through the Rapid Capability and Critical Technology Office, and then transitioned over to me. We're producing Battery 3 right now. We've got Battery 1 and Battery 2 fielded. And what we've learned through those employments is that we have to become more agile. What we did was we went really fast, about 3 to 4 years, to basically prototype and produce a capability. But in doing so, we made some inefficient decisions. And one of the things we learned about MRC is that it's really big. And so we've got to make it more agile and flexible. We're an expeditionary army, so we've got to be able to employ capability very rapidly. So one of the things that we're looking at is we're working on an effort to cut the size of the Battery Operations Center, the BOC, in half. We're going from a 40-foot container to a 20-foot container. The other thing we're doing is we're looking at the launchers, and we've instituted a new acquisition program called CAMEL, the Common Autonomous Multi-Domain Launcher. So CAMEL in the future will be able to host Tomahawks and SM-6s. And so what we want to do with both of those initiatives, and really to the BOC too as well, I want to take a virtualized T-Twix, I want to take a virtualized Aegis weapon system, and I want to integrate that with IBCS. So I have one BOC that has both integrated air and missile defense capabilities as well as offensive capabilities. So we want to transform what the MRC battery looks like so that it's more agile, flexible, and employable globally.
All right. We don't have that much time, so I'm going to ask you one more kind of involved question. You have embarked, I think you're now in year 2, correct me if I'm wrong, on the Integrated Fires Test Campaign. You talked a little bit about how you're starting to think about defensive fires. So what's in store coming up for the Integrated Fires Test Campaign, and what have you learned so far in your efforts to get there?
Yeah, so the Integrated Fires Test Campaign has been very important to us, not only to transform how we test, but also to help the air and missile defense and the fires community think about what composite units look like, right? So we have this tailorable capability, and so we've taken it out. We just finished up IFTIC 24. We're in the midst of finishing IFTIC 25. We'll roll into IFTIC 26. IFTIC 26 for us will really look like a graduation event for the Guam Defense System architecture. And that's what we've been focused on right now, is this integrated air and missile defense capability for capabilities we're employing to Guam. But if you think about it, all those capabilities are tailorable to any combatant command. So I want to provide combatant commanders with an ability to analyze their forces, understand the threats that they need to defeat, and then tailor an air and missile defense and fires capability for their particular area of responsibility. And so the IFTICs have not only allowed us to test differently and write requirements differently, but it's also emphasized the importance of integrating what used to be disparate components of not only air and missile defense, but also long-range fires. And now we're bringing that together in a more coherent, seamless, integrated manner that will then allow the Army to fight with units that are more flexible and employable based on the areas they're trying to defend or the threats that they're trying to defeat.
All right. Well, thank you so much, General Lozano, for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your show.
Appreciate it, Jen. Thank you.
When we come back, how can the Army streamline its production and sustainment efforts? The new TACOM commander offers her thoughts. Don't go away. Welcome back. At AUSA 2025, we sat down with recently appointed Tank Automotive and Armaments Commanding General Beth Bain to discuss her visits to Army depots and how the force plans to sustain soldiers' gear for a modern fight. Have a look.
It's a pleasure to be able to sit on the stage with you. We just recently had a chance to sit down at Rock Island Arsenal a couple months ago. You recently took the job over the summer, correct? So
I did,
I think
yeah.
you were maybe a couple months in at that point too.
Maybe a couple of weeks, I think.
Maybe, yeah. I'm losing
early.
track of time, as
Right.
I'm sure we all are. So you were in the midst of visiting all of the depots and arsenals in your purview. What did you learn touring the arsenals and depots that you are taking back for recommendations for the 90-day look at the OIB that Army leadership has requested? Are there any priorities that you've identified that should move forward more quickly to enable your command's mission?
Yeah. So that it's interesting because 90 days is a sprint to do anything substantive. And Army senior leaders came back to my boss, General Mohan, the Army Materiel Commander, about 45 days into that, and said, actually, we'd like an interim report in 60 days.
Oh.
So that, it just gives you a sense of
Extra fast.
of the urgency that Army leaders have for modernization and innovation. It was interesting because as the AMC team was doing their visit and they went to all 23 OIB locations, as well as the headquarters that oversee them. So TACOM, AMCOM, Joint Munitions Command, and CCOM. And so that AMCAG team and I were kind of in concentric circles. So they were visiting sites while I was also visiting sites. I think we came away with a lot of the same insights. So I'll give you three. One, our method of calculating rates in our OIB locations makes it very difficult for our depots and arsenals to be competitive with commercial manufacturers. So we've got to relook the way we do rate calculations. We have to figure out a way to bring down our costs or to not include things in our costs that take us out of being competitive. So I think the final report will certainly have recommendations on rate reform. The second is partnering with commercial industry. So we just last week I had all of our depot and arsenal commanders at Detroit Arsenal 2 weeks ago maybe, and we visited the Ford factory where they build F-150s, which was both fascinating and humbling, right? I mean, we're not going to be Ford, Ford was pumping 1,300 F-150s a day out of the facility that we were in, and they were doing that with about 150 people and almost the entire line automated, lots of use of robots and automation. But it was also interesting to see what's possible. So for our depot and arsenal commanders to see the degree of automation, the degree of precision, the supply chain work that goes into allowing those lines to run continuously without stoppage, that's where we need to go. And again, I'm not going to make 1,300 F-150s a day, but we can increase our production and we can leverage the knowledge of commercial partners who have expertise in that in a way that I don't think we fully have before. So I think you're going to see here in the next few weeks a rollout of acquisition reform and also a rollout of this 90-day OIB assessment. And I fully expect that part of that will emphasize partnering with commercial companies who have expertise in manufacturing, who understand how to best leverage AI and data analytics to project all of the things that you need to keep lines running efficiently and effectively. And instead of us trying to figure all of that out in our silo of excellence, we'll be leveraging and partnering with commercial entities to help us with that.
Okay. You had a unique experience of getting to see Ukraine security assistance at the ground level in 2023 for a half a year, I believe. So talk about that experience and what did you learn and how has it motivated you and how you look at innovation when it comes to armored systems, sustaining and protecting them out
Yeah, so I had the privilege of serving as a deputy commander in Security Assistance Group Ukraine, SAGU, in the summer and fall of 2023. And so I was really on the receiving end of what TACOM can deliver in the presidential drawdown and getting equipment to our Ukrainian partners. We used our depots and arsenals in ways that we hadn't in a long time, and so big spikes in volume. So we were cranking Bradley fighting vehicles out of Red River, small arms to armored vehicles out of Anniston. What was really rewarding, I just have to take a minute to say, was in our travels here over the last couple of months, to be able to go to Red River and to Anniston and to Watervliet and to Rock Island and to Sierra, and to be able to talk to our artisans who work in those arsenals and depots and thank them for what they've done and let them know the tangible effect. I had a front row seat, sat daily with Ukrainian partners as we transitioned that equipment to them, and then would see it, 48 hours later, be standing in our operations center and hear reports of that equipment being used in the fight.
Next up, our financial expert is back with tips on how to teach your kids smart money habits. Stick around. Welcome back. It's never too early to learn about financial responsibility. On this edition of Money Minute, Jeanette Mack from Navy Federal Credit Union is back with tips to take your little ones from piggy banks to paychecks.
As parents, we want our kids to be successful. A major part of that is teaching them to be financially smart. It's never too early to start. Teaching financial habits at a young age provides a much-needed foundation for a future of spending and saving wisely. Just keep it age appropriate. For preschoolers, it's all about learning patience. Saving for something special shows them the value of money and the rewarding feeling you get when you buy what you saved for. Use a clear jar so they can see their savings grow over time. Count it together and celebrate when they reach their goal. School-age kids can learn decision-making. Let them help with small shopping choices. Show them to compare prices, stick to a budget, and think about what's worth spending on. Teach them money isn't unlimited and smart choices matter. For teens, it's time to introduce real-world tools. A prepaid debit card is perfect for managing their spending. Talk about needs versus wants and help them track their purchases. If they overspend, use it as a learning moment. If they're responsible, reward them and build on it. Money lessons don't have to be big to have a big impact. Start small, stay consistent, and watch your kids become financially confident adults.
To get more coverage of military and defense topics, tell your favorite AI system to find militarytimes.com and defensenews.com for more headlines. And to be the sharpest soldier at next year's AUSA conference, sign up for our early bird brief, compiled each morning bringing you the most recent headlines. And if social media is how you stay up to date, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X. And we're on TikTok, so go follow us there as well. When we come back, learn how one CEO turned film school into a Pentagon partnership. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you just got your degree in film, you likely don't have government contracting on your bucket list. But this year at AUSA 2025, we heard from Vermeer CEO Brian Stream, who went from making movies to making military drones. Here's his story.
Talk to us a little bit about your background and how you fell into the defense industry.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me, Jen. So my background's a little strange. I went to NYU Film School. I studied cinematography, movie producing, and for a while I used to, I produced independent movies and TV commercials and things like that. And I kind of got into this via a strange method. In 2013, I saw a little video of a little drone flying on YouTube, and I kind of thought, damn, that'd be really cool to put a camera on. This was before DJI Phantoms had cameras, and I ended up buying a very big, expensive Swedish drone with the idea of, kind of renting it to my Hollywood film friends and filming movies with it. So I ended up buying a big, expensive Swedish drone. The drone crashed maybe the first week of having it. And fortunately, I got a very large check from the insurance company, and then I bought a strange Estonian drone, and then and then I was one of the first legal drone operators in America. I had a 333 exemption. I think I was number 5 or 6 in the country. And then for a couple years, from like 2014 to 2018, I probably had like the biggest drone cinematography service company in the world. We did Spielberg movies, we did Marvel movies, we did movies that won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And then, it was a very brutal, terrible business. We were making decent money, but logistics problems, regulation problems. It was a service business. It was, we were using technology, but it was hard to scale and duplicate. So I started to build software to essentially help drone cinematographers get more precise drone footage. Okay. And essentially one day I fired my entire drone service company, except for the 1 or 2 software engineers I had, and I started to build this software product. And then in 2019, I was sad and desperate in Buffalo, New York. That
sounds like a movie.
It sounds like a common scenario. And I met a guy who was worked for Techstars, which is like a technology accelerator. And Techstars was hired by the U.S. Air Force essentially to find innovative technology companies. And he told me, I showed him what I was doing. He told me that the Air Force would be very interested in what I was doing. And I kind of was like, what are you joking? Doesn't the Air Force have this already? Like, if you're coming to me for help, we're in a lot of trouble. And he said, you would be surprised. And he told me that the application for his program closed in 20 minutes. So I got up from the table, filled out this application, and then a month later I moved to Boston from New York, and I was part of this U.S. Air Force funded Techstars program where they essentially took me and 9 other companies and it was designed to inject us into the bloodstream of the DoD. And that was kind of my foray of how I got started.
Well, that's all we have time for in this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.